Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to talk about one brand that I recently found in Sephora that I have been I don't know how to describe. I never watched that YouTuber particularly, but it is the One Size brand from Patrick Starrr, and I bought a few products from him, two eye products and two face products, the primer and the powder. And today we are going to do a review. Yes, a review, not a wear test, a review of all of these products, and I hope you continue to watch. And let's get started with the video. So I would do how I usually do my makeup. I would do my face and then my eyes. So this primer is a very interesting primer. It's pink and red. Um, it's a kind of like a blur primer with a lot of slick. The the texture of the primer is a lot of those kind of silicone-esque primer where it's very jelly-like, and it is very blurring, and it has that cool, doesn't have that, it's really soft, and it does have that really thick moisturized feeling to it. And I think it does help with longevity along my T-zone, and it's a very comfortable primer to use. Sometimes some primers, they just don't feel right, and this one in particular, you can use a very small amount in your T-zone, and it does a really good job. And I'll be using the Fenty Hydrating Primer all over my face. Because my skin is a little dry, so I will be priming it with a hydrating primer. So I've been changing how I do my foundation a bit. I've tried out different techniques, and certainly if you powder it down first, I didn't really like the result of that. So I won't be powdering my face first, but I will just straight up put on the foundation. I'll be using the Born This Way foundation in the shade Porcelain, which is, it's a bit too light for me, but this is the darkest shade that they come in Hong Kong. So I'll take 3 pumps. I'll use Real Techniques sculpting brush. I think this primer goes really well with the foundation. The primer, it has a lot of those skincare-esque kind of ingredient. It has niacinamide, all those good stuff, but I don't know how much do they help your skin when it's in your last step of your kind of skin prep, because you usually do go with sunscreen and other serums before you put on the primer. So I actually prefer the the original version of the primer instead of the matte version one, because I think in the review in the past I said I like this version a bit more because it is more mattifying and it's more long wearing, but I found that you need quite a bit of foundation in order to make it quite the coverage that you want, and sometimes it takes time to really, it takes less time to use like the original version of it, and it doesn't really self-set, but it's a really nice one to use. This one is set really nicely, but you do have to work a bit quicker. And then I will use the Born This Way Multi-Sculpt Concealer using the shade Light Beige to conceal, well, actually highlight a bit of my face, the center part of my face. I've been figuring out how to wear makeup when I'm like sweating a lot lately, and my nose area, they just don't really like any product on there. So I've been avoiding a lot of product on my nose where I sweat profusely, and I just feel like it's not worth it to put like products on there anymore. And it's been super hot lately. It's like 30 plus degrees every day. So I'm looking very pale right now, so don't really mind how pale I look. So I will set my face using the powder from like One Size Beauty. It's a really chalky kind of powder, I think. I like try this out, and it's quite mattifying. I don't like the design because it's like it has like a hole in the middle, and then it has this stopper, which is really difficult to get a lot like powder out unless you're doing this. But like powder goes everywhere when I do this. So I like take a bit of powder here. Now I would use like a powder brush, this kind of like brush, pointer brush. I use this kind of like pointer brush to like set my T-zone because it's more precise, and I can like really pack on the powder on the area that I need extra powder, and it gives quite a bit of like control. So after I set my face, and then I will use this fluffier powder brush. I would take a bit of powder, you can see, and then I will use the cap to really like stir the powder to distribute the powder to the brush, and then I would just sweep it through my skin. So it's a very matte powder. It does give you that like sort of like velvet finish. A little goes a long way, I think. And it does have like a similar feeling to the Laura Mercier powder, but I think this one is a bit more hydrating than the One Size Beauty powder. I don't necessarily have like an opinion on powder because it's not really doing a lot for my makeup setup, and usually when I use powder it does wear longer, but usually setting spray does more for me than using powder. But unless it's non-self-setting like non-self-setting foundation, then powder doesn't really matter for me currently. But in the current environment and all of the things that I'm like going through in the weather, powder is a necessity for me. And now we will go to the eyeshadow palette, which is a really beautiful eyeshadow palette. It has like 15 shades. You see there's like mostly warm, but the last row it's kind of like that very funky, interesting color selection of that. But before we go into the eyes, we will prime our eyes using the Anastasia eye primer. I think this is like the best eye primer I use out of like all other eye primers, but I don't really like the color necessary. I like the Urban Decay primers because they have a bit more like color selection to choose from, and this one they only, at the time I bought them, they only come in one shade, and it's a bit too pale. So it's a self-setting primer, so I don't have to like put on powder after I prime my eyes. I don't know what kind of like color theme I will be going. Maybe I should go for like the green tones for the matcha and olive colors. Let's see. So I will use mango to prime my, like, to use it as my transition shade because it's looking a bit more warmer, a bit more yellowish, if you will. And I kind of think that it suits like the green tones, like the warmer tones. And I'm using like a big fluffy brush to do it. And then I would just go on and use like a brush, like a synthetic brush, and use all of it in the center lid and the inner corner and center lid area. The color looks a bit more gold on my skin than like in real life in the camera. No, in real life in the mirror I meant. Than really olive to me. It's really going very soft, smooth, which is really lovely. Sometimes some shimmer or more glittery shade, they just don't really like to stick on like my skin, which is a really difficult thing to do because I just don't know how to really make them stick unless you have like maybe a glitter glue. Then it's really hard to really make it work. So now I will use the shade Matcha on the outer corner. It's a really pigmented shade. I think it's a bit more powdery than some of the shade I've tried on. But definitely very pigmented. Which I think like darker shades or like cooler shades are difficult to make because of like maybe the pigments there. And it's looking a bit more gray than green on my skin now. Because sometimes when you mix in like green and red, it kind of comes out a bit gray, and that's okay. It's blending out really nicely, but It's just that it's a bit more powdery than some of the eyeshadow that I've tried. And now I will use like a blending brush to blend the colors. And then we will finish the lower lash line. So now we also will try their like Eyepoppers, which I've bought the shade Everything and More, which is a really beautiful color. It's like a very pink shade. I really like pinks. And I know today my eye look is more olivey, yellow green, but a puff of pink in the inner corner might give it like an extra pop. I know it might not make any sense, but I'm just going to get in and paint a bit of like pink in the inner corners. Last time I tried this on, it kind of like lift the product underneath my makeup, so it was like I was trying to pat on the eyepopper directly on the skin, and it's like lifting things up. And then I tried to like paint it on my skin first and then put it on my eyes, and it didn't quite work. So let's see. Just now I just put on a bit of in my inner corners, and it didn't lift anything up, but it's like the same thing, that it's just you just have to pop that in, and then I don't really love this. They have like a few colors. I really like the black one, but I think that it would be a bit boring if you use the black one. Like, it's really glittery and really shiny, but it's a bit sheer, maybe because of the way that I use it, but I'm using a brush to blend the colors in so that it like they mash together. Well, I gather it looks kind of like tacky with the pink, but actually it does like go like in the same color like scheme as my like transition shade, so it's kind of like blending the things together pretty well. But I just don't think the intensity is there. So if I put this on the bare skin, this is the color. Like this is the color. This is the color. It looks beautiful, but I don't know. Maybe like I will try this again. I think when it's wet, it's looking a bit more like colorful, but then when it dries down, it doesn't have the same amount of pop. But now my inner corners are going crazy. And it's kind of like budge proof as well, because I'm trying to pick up some extra that I just put on my hands, and it kind of dries down really quickly. So here you can see this horizontal thing, it kind of like sticks onto my skin already. You can blend it out and shear it out, and it looks really nice as well. But I think that's not really it didn't really hit the expectation that I want the product to be. Well, then we will go to finish up the eye looks. Now I would put some black using Turban Legend on my like upper lash line, just to give them a bit more definition on the outer corners. I like the black from this palette. Sometimes good blacks are hot. Sometimes good blacks are hard to come by, and not every day you get like a nice black eyeshadow in a palette. Sometimes they just look great. Not great, gray, Christian gray or gray anatomy. But this one looks pretty dark, and you can blend it out to gray it out, make it a little bit less intense, or you can just straight up put it on and it will look good. And then I will, the lower lash line, it's not looking really clean right now. It's really smudged with like black and dark color, so I'm just gonna blend that out a bit. And then I will pop in a bit of brown using the shade Brownie. It's quite an intense brown shade as well, but just want less coolness around the lower lash line to slightly give the eyes a bit more warmth, because overall it's a really warm eyeshadow like combination instead of like being quite like cool. So give a bit more warmth to the eye so that it doesn't look too stark. And then I will just pop in like everything in the eyeshadow palette, so it's like the complementary shade of like everything and more, I guess. So I just pop this in the front of the lower lash line. And it's a sister shade of everything and more, but it's more orangey pink than it's like a coolish pink. I've like tried some of the shades in this eyeshadow palette. I've tried Super Cream, I've like tried Rebel Gray, Blue Mondew, and those shades, the Blue Mondew shade is a bit more of that pigment shade. It's a bit drier. It doesn't have like the same opacity. It kind of like doesn't look like what it is in the pan, but if you know how to use it, for example, you would pack that on with like a wet base, it will come up really nicely. The cool, like the Rebel Gray shade is really nice, and it's really intense, and it pairs really well with the like blue shade. The black, again, I really like it. And I didn't try some of the more generic like brown shades here because they just look nice. I think this palette is kind of fun, and it's great quality as well. And I think this is like one of the best palette I've like tried lately, because some of the eyeshadow palette that I try, they don't really come close to this. And I like the color selection, and I like the quality as well. The Eyepopper, I just don't really found it to be necessarily as exciting as the palette. I will finish off my face, and then we will come back and talk about everything in the collection. After I finish up like some of the makeup, I put on some bronzer, blush, some brows, some lips. To be honest, I think the winner products are like the powder, the eyeshadow palette, and the primer itself, because the primer it does blurring, it does prolong the wear, it's really nice in texture, and I really love the packaging and everything of it. And a little goes a long way as well, and you can like glob it all over your face, but I think this is a really good kind of like a T-zone minimizer. Really love it. The powder, I think it's really just a typical powder, but it's really, I think it's chalky, not in a bad way. Sometimes when you think of really chalky, it's like too powdery, too like drying, but I think it's powdered in a way that it's really finding mill, and it does really have that blurring drying, not drying but mattifying effect. And this the packaging is a little bit too like big for my taste, and I think that it has how many ounce? I don't remember how many ounce, like 1.2, and this package it has like 1 ounce, and I like this packaging more than this one. I like the sifter more than like the hole in the middle kind of like a packaging, but that's besides my point. That's Patrick's decision if you have saw his video. And this Eyepopper is just, I mean, maybe it's just a miss for me. Maybe it's for bare skin. Maybe you just pop that out and then blend it in and then add a bit of color on. I just don't really like it. It's really pretty to use. It's pretty to look. You swipe it on, it looks really colorful. Once it dries down, it doesn't have the same impact. I don't think you can use it with like a matte base, or else it would pick up like the base. You have to use like a base that hasn't been like powdered or mattified and everything of the sort. So here's my video. Hope you like it. Hope you enjoy me trying out like a whole new brand from Sephora and from a YouTuber themselves. Sometimes some products are not as accessible for me, so that I couldn't really go out and buy. I really like to shop in store and test it out before I shop it online. I know I've tried Makeup Geek, and you know how that goes. I didn't really love like the pigment eyeshadow. I didn't really love it. So here's my thought on One Size Beauty. Thanks for watching, and I hope you please like, comment, and subscribe to my channel, and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye for now.